Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, I'm rushing because I have other things to do today and I didn't mean to do this reading right now. Leos, this feels like a time-sensitive, important message. Huge trigger warnings, especially if you've, like trigger warnings for R, S, A, inappropriate age relationships, oh gosh, lots and lots of things. Okay, so this is not going to be for everybody. It feels like a very specific message, perhaps for an individual. Okay, I need to start with Capricorn. Capricorn's energy was coming through, and it was coming through with, let me just get my notes. New York City, Capricorn, New York City, 1010, if any of that makes any sense. So it could be on the 10th of the 10th. I did have this message in another reading that the 10th of October is going to be an important date. So again, Capricorn, 1010. So again, it could be for a specific individual. It could be something collective. It's making me think a lot. And I did question for a second, is this talking about Russell Brand? Because you may know that he's in the news at the moment. There's some controversy around him. I have a lot of opinions about this, but I don't want to kind of get into that right now. I looked up his birth chart and I thought, is he a Leo? He's not. So I want to say this is not about Russell Brand, but if you have been following what people have been talking about, it could be like parallel lines, right? It could be something very similar. Capricorn's reading, there was this thing in it for September that said, it was like Capricorn was asking someone to do a deep dive into a specific person. It was almost like they were recruiting a private investigator. It was like they were asking a Libra, and this makes sense now because it's like the Justice card, right? The Justice card is Libra. So it's like they were asking, I don't know, filing a police report and asking the police to look into something or something like this, or hiring a private investigator, or even maybe getting a sidekick, right? It was like, I am getting this person to do this deep dive, to go and find evidence on this person because I think that they, you know, like that feeling of like, you know, I'm sure there's something not right about this person, or I think that this person is, I don't know. It was something like, you know, maybe perhaps even something like a higher up in the workplace, like a boss, or, you know, somebody who has the power to like hire and fire people, maybe like a politician, somebody important. It's like Capricorn suspected that this person with almost like emperor status, right? It's coming through as the emperor, has been like SA, possibly women, it doesn't have to be, but it's like they suspected, right? But they didn't have evidence. So it's like they were going to this other energy and saying, go and find the evidence, right? I think something's happened here, or maybe they've heard things, like people have said things about this person, and like it's kind of like or you know, even sometimes there's that case where it's like everybody knows but nobody has evidence. So it's like if we say anything, you know, I don't want to get kind of accused of being like, I don't want to get sued for like slander, or you know, it's kind of like I can't say anything, my hands are tied, right? Like with the Eight of Swords, my hands are tied, I can't do anything about this, even though everybody knows that there's something up with this person. So I don't know why it's coming through in your reading, Leo, about this situation, but it is, and it's coming through so strongly. So Capricorn, New York City, 1010. I was getting that song, Solitary Brother, is this how we're supposed to live? If that's for anyone. This Capricorn energy, it was coming through as well with like Diet Mountain Dew by Lana Del Rey. So I was getting this thing of like, I will love you forever, I will love you forever, and I was getting New York City, New York City. And so as I was thinking this, the next song that played was Diet Mountain Dew, and she says, will we be in love forever? Diamond Dew, baby, New York City. She says Diet Mountain Dew, but I hear Diamond Dew. So diamonds as well could be something. Again, there could be a Libra involved. Diamonds mean Libra to me. I think they're associated with Aries traditionally, but to me, through the symbology that my guides work with, it means Libra. I was getting something about Capricorn energy being, they have strong boundaries, which is funny because then the boundaries came out, right? It's like unexpected as well. It's like somebody unexpectedly like breaking or cracking the boundaries, something like that. So it's like Capricorn tends to have the guard up. They tend to be very, very picky, very selective. They have quite high expectations of themselves, which leads them to have quite high expectations of the people around them. It's quite close. It's quite hard to get close to a Capricorn, right? They like to keep people at arm's length until they really, really trust people. So loyalty, trust, all these important factors when it comes to Cap's energy. I randomized a song to say, what is the message? What is the message for whoever is resonating with this? And I got Real Wild Child by Iggy Pop. Now, it does say in that song, I got the message, be a wild one. So it could be that a Capricorn's getting the message to kind of like loosen up, be a bit more wild, let that wild side out. But the funny thing about that song as well, the image on it is Iggy Pop, and he's quite old in this album cover that I've got on Spotify, and he's singing about being a real wild child and getting just out of school. So it's almost, I am getting that feeling of like, you know, like how Russell Brand was like this wild man in his younger days when he was kind of like an addict. And like, let's not pretend that he was a perfect person in those days. I've read both his bookie works. He admits himself that he was off the rails, right? He was off his head, off the rails. He was doing things he shouldn't have been doing, right? This is not a big secret. I'm not excusing, I'm not condoning, I'm saying that he absolutely was not at his best when he was in those wild child days, right? And it's that kind of thing of like an older person with influence, perhaps whether a situation is consensual or not, there's still the power dynamic there and the age difference there, and things like that that kind of like muddy the waters when it comes to consent. So again, I don't want to touch on that too much. There's quite a lot to say, I think, about that from a lot of different angles. Again, I'm a Libra, so I kind of like the Justice card, right? You've got to kind of weigh up all the evidence and look at the whole situation. So moving swiftly on, but again, like using that as an example, there could be a situation that's happened like that where, you know, maybe an older man has had quite a younger girl. Again, Diet Mountain Dew, she seems like she's quite young in that. All morning I've been getting stuff about classical culture. So my Augustus book was kind of like left out on the table, and I was kind of like, is there something about this for Leo, right? Is there something about Augustus Caesar for Leo? And then this morning as well, I randomly came across this YouTube channel that I've never watched before, and it was covering the story of Hades and Persephone, and how she was kind of abducted by Hades against her will. This is the original mythology, the original language. It was an abduction, and Persephone was scared. She was screaming out for help, and I think in our modern society, and I do this as well, Hades and Persephone are kind of like my favorite couple from the Greek pantheon, because they, despite having a very, very rocky start, right, and I'm not kind of glossing over that, you know, like that was a bad thing, they are one of the healthiest couples, surprisingly, in the long run. You know, whatever form that relationship took, right? Where if you look at Zeus and Hera's relationship, that was a hot mess. And Zeus was doing that one thing that Hades did once, lots of times with lots of people. So Hercules, Disney's Hercules, I'm sorry, you've really, really got the good guy and the bad guy wrong in that movie. But yeah, it's like, you know, the lesser of two evils, right? They're both evils. I don't know, I'm getting into a weird situation. Like, let's just say R and SA are bad, right? And that's to make that clear. But yeah, I was kind of thinking to myself, why do we, and I do this too, right? Why do we romanticize this relationship? Because the specific example that they were talking about was it's kind of like a webtoon, and it is a romance between Hades and Persephone, and it's very, very popular, and it mentions, like, in this webtoon, like, they have this big age difference, and he like employs her in his company, and he's giving her all these benefits, like paying her to be an intern when none of the other interns get paid, and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, and she's 19 and he's like 2,000 years old, you know, all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like, I don't know. There's a lot of this storyline keeps on coming up, right, for you, and it's something for someone, is all I can say. I was also talking about, and I do wonder if it was in the Capricorn reading, about Ovid and Augustus, and the story Ovid tells about Apollo and Daphne. Now, in your reading, you do have the laurel tree. Just to kind of go over your cards as well, you've also got the apple. So again, another New York reference, right? The big apple. You've got the witch and snow. So there could be something about Snow White, right? Snow White, the witch, and the apple. But the apple and snow, it was making me think of like New York at Christmas time when it snows. The Guardian could be the Guardian newspaper or a similar publication, right? A lot of the time they kind of out, people who are being corrupt. So it could also be a guardian energy. The dragon and guardian to me mean kind of powerful spiritual forces associated with our shadow that protect us. So guardian spirits. We've also got the moon, which talks about secrets, things that are hidden, and fears. Can also be a confusing situation when the moon comes through. And the laurel tree, right? The laurel tree is a new card for me. I've added it. I've got the willow tree, I've got the oak tree, and now I've got the laurel tree, because it's like this message wanted to come through. Now so just to tell you very, very briefly, I'm not doing a history lesson here. Augustus and Ovid, this is my favorite phase to study of kind of the history of Rome, the Augustan period, because they had this great blossoming of writing. Augustus kind of employed writers to kind of create a mythology for him. Augustus and Maecenas, who was like his friend, and Maecenas was like a big literary guy, so he recruited various people like Virgil, Ovid, to kind of rewrite or document the mythologized history of Rome, right? So we're even talking about kind of the mythical kings of Rome before the Republic and all this kind of stuff. It's this brilliant, brilliant period that's so rich and vibrant, and you can really dive deep into it. But the interesting thing for me, while Ovid was literally employed by Augustus or Maecenas indirectly, right, to write the Metamorphosis, which is this mythological history of Rome from Greece, right? So they adopt a lot of Greek myths. He keeps subtly undermining Augustus. It's almost like I feel like maybe Augustus was doing things that he shouldn't have been doing, right? Maybe he was taking advantage of his position. Maybe he was, SA and R young girls. There's no evidence for this, because how are you going to say that, right, about the emperor? Augustus had done this whole series of kind of like, is it called the prescriptions? I always get that word wrong, but it's like he basically issued like all these lists of names of his enemies and the people who would speak out against him. So famously people like Cicero, and they were hunted down by Augustus's army and killed, because Rome had gone through this whole period of civil war, with like Romans fighting Romans, everybody vying for power. Augustus, who absolutely was the underdog, like, again, like, very interesting figure. I'm not saying he was a good guy. I'm saying he was very, very good at what he did, right? And what he did was seize the power of Rome and brought, surprisingly, actually quite a decent level of peace and structure to Roman society. I'm not saying he was a good guy, but I'm saying he accomplished his mission. So yeah, he did establish peace. This is why the doors of Janus were shut twice. So some people saw him as a great guy. Maybe he wasn't 100% perfect, right? And maybe Ovid was calling him out. And the reason why I think there's an element of truth to this is that Ovid was eventually expelled from Rome. He was kind of ostracized and sent to the Black Sea. I think it's like Romania now. Basically he wasn't killed, but he was, stripped of his rights as a Roman, and kind of sent out of the kingdom. So we know that he did something to upset Augustus, right? And this could be one of the things. So you can see on the front of the cover here, it's this very, very, very famous, beautiful sculpture of Apollo and Daphne. Now, I don't want to read the whole story of Apollo and Daphne. I'm just going to kind of open the book here. My book's really dirty, sorry. It's very well used. But you can see here, if you want to go to Metamorphoses, book 1, page 28 here, but it's line like 450, something like that, and the story of Daphne. And it's Apollo absolutely mad with lust, hunting Daphne down, chasing her through the woods. You can see here how Daphne says, you know, she would cling to her father's neck and say, I want to remain a virgin forever. Please grant me that. I don't want to get married. I want to join Diana's tribe, right? Diana, the goddess of the hunt, famously, like, you know, all the women in her kind of hunting party were all virgins. So, you know, she didn't want to have intercourse, basically, but because of Cupid's arrow hitting Apollo, absolutely goes like feral for her, hunting her down. The story Ovid tells, this English translation, absolutely harrowing, like horrible, right? Like her fear is palpable. Apollo's mad with lust, to the point where, and again, huge trigger warnings here, because I know this could be very, very triggering for people. It's like, why would you read this, right? Because I read it academically, right? And again, Ovid is one of the best writers for me, one of my favorite storytellers, one of my favorite writers. Like, even though the subject matter is horrible in some cases, it's beautiful in other cases. But basically, Daphne pleads, she's like begging the gods, begging her father, who's a river god, to save her from Apollo, Apollo's a god, right? He's the god of the sun, and he is absolutely like very, very powerful. Like, who's going to stand up to a god? You know, it's the gods get to do what the gods want to do most of the time. But thankfully, Daphne's father, the river god, to save her, changes her into a laurel tree. And like I say, you do have the laurel tree here. But in his madness, Apollo continues to, you know, I'll read this passage. It is quite harrowing. Tree though she was, Apollo still loved her, replaced love with lusted. Caressing the trunk with his hand, he could feel the heart still fluttering under the new bark. Her heart's fluttering because she's scared, right? She's just ran through the woods to escape him. Her heart's still fluttering in fear, but you know, the heart flutters with love as well, and that's how he's interpreting it. So there's a misunderstanding here. Seizing the branches as though they were limbs, in his arms embrace, he pressed his lips to the wood, but the wood still shrank from his kisses. It is clear that Daphne does not want this. Phoebus then said to her, Phoebus is Apollo, since you cannot be mine in wedlock, you must at least be Apollo's tree. It is you who will always be twined in my hair, on my tuneful lyre, and my quiver of arrows. The generals of Rome shall be wreathed in you when the jubilant paean of triumph is raised and the long procession ascends the Capitol. Right? So he's saying, clearly Daphne has done her best to escape his physical molestation of her, and yet even though she's a tree, he continues to say forever and ever, like, we are going to use your branches to make wreaths to crown our, you know, to crown our men, you know, I'm going to use your, you know, your twine to make a bow, I'm like, you know, your bark to make arrows and all this kind of stuff. So like, even though she's escaped him as a mortal or as a nymph, like, he's still physically using her against her will, right? It's disgusting. And this is the power of Ovid as a storyteller. Like, you know, he doesn't have to explicitly say that. It's clear and it's harrowing, and you know, I just think he's really making a point here, because then he says, and again, remember, he's writing for Augustus. He says, he makes a direct link to Augustus, because he says, on either side of Augustus's gates, your trees shall stand sentry, faithfully guarding the crown of oak leaves hanging between them. So Ovid had two crowns, notably as well. The card that I pulled out randomly to kind of like bookmark this was the Five of Swords, so it's about fighting. So yeah, notably Augustus did wear a crown of laurel wreaths, and he tended towards an oak crown because this was like the civic coronus. It meant that he'd saved fellow citizens in battle. But you know, this direct link between the trees that kind of the laurel wreath and the laurel trees that guard Augustus's gates, and Ovid is a contemporary of Augustus. This is somebody writing at the time that Augustus lived and was seizing control of Rome, right? He was there. He's saying that. He can't directly say you know, accuse Augustus of SA, but he's made a direct link between that harrowing story of a god abusing his power, right? A powerful figure abusing a young girl, and a direct link with the symbolism that Augustus uses, and it's not complementary. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Um, I had a dream last night. So before I got any of this information, I had a dream last night about somebody who was assaulted by a group of young men. And it was though I was reading the report, right? It was though I was reading like the witness statement or something like that. And it was, the more details I read, the more harrowing it was. And I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't bear to read it all. It was too upsetting. There was too much detail. It was too much for me to handle in this dream. And I was so angry. And I woke up in the process of cursing this group of men, basically. And I was kind of like, whoa, that's bad karma for myself. You know, like, universe can deal with that one. But it's kind of like that rage, that anger. And you know, being like how hard it is to read about, you know, absolute cruelty. And to see it from the victim's point of view. So again, I've been getting this thing through for a while about a court case, you know, maybe somebody being on the jury. And you know, like, you can't talk about the case while you're on the jury. And if this is like a really harrowing trial, you know, there's a lot of kind of like mental health stuff there that I think, you know, somebody might need support with if this is the case. All right, anyway, so you've got the April card. Now, there was something in Aries is reading about the tea being spilt in April, and I wonder if that's connected. Could also be dealing with somebody with an April birthday. I'm going to leave it there because I had to get that part of the story out. I feel like the rest of the story can kind of like wait for me to kind of like do what I need to do today. But absolutely, it's like justice is coming. Justice is coming. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. I hope this was interesting so far. I will see you later. Okay, so it's been a number of hours later. Like I say, I did get busy and I just was settling down and I put on Julia Knows, and I've literally got 1 minute and 19 seconds into her Virgo reading, and I was like, oh my god, it's about New York, which is what drew my attention in the first place. And she mentions this thing about a kid coming out of the woods, and I'm like, I don't know, it feels like my reading, and I want to finish my reading before I watch Joya's. So you're just gonna have to trust me on the timing of that. Okay, so I kind of mentioned what led me here in the first place. Now I want to say, if somebody, like I say, it's almost like somebody's pointed to someone and said, like, investigate that person, or I think there's something fishy about that person, pay attention to them. And it feels like that's what's happening, because the first cards that came out were Stingray on the underlying and Bee and Dragon. Now the Stingray card, some of you may know, it's come to have an additional meaning for me, because apparently when certain crime agencies are tapping people's phones, they use a device called the Stingray, or they used to. I watched a documentary on a guy who was doing fraud, and that was the name of the device they used. So sometimes when the Stingray card comes out, it means like being undercover, right? Almost like a Page of Pentacles, not Page of Pentacles, Page of Swords, kind of like observing, collecting information, trying to fly under the radar. The bat also has this kind of meaning for me, but the Stingray specifically makes me think of that. Now, the first card that came out in this spread was this card here, which has this kind of like password thing. So it's looking to me a little bit like remote. You know, I used to have it in my old workplace, where if we had a problem with the computer system, we could give people permission to take control of the system from a distance, right? They were, you know, helping us, and, you know, they'd be like, let me look at it, and they'd take control of the computer. So it's almost like that, right? Or that device that they use. It's kind of like this person has access to a device, or you have access to someone's device. But with, like I say, with the Bee and the Dragon, it's almost like this person's got their eye on an individual. Can you see how it's almost like this looks almost like, you know, a telescope, or, you know, the eye, you know, I don't know, like this is the iris, right? This is what the person's viewing. And with the dragon as well, and the dragon being a big energy, it's almost like an authoritative energy, or a you know, somebody with a lot of power, something like this. It's like the dragon, which can be a guardian energy, like I say, like a protective guardian energy, like a police force would be. You know, you could think of it that way. It's kind of like it's got this specific bee in its sights. Now, it's bees normally are a part of a hive, right? They're part of a collective. So with the thing about New York City as well, it's almost like when I was doing my course, there was this I did a chapter about cities basically, and poetry that came out of cities, and you know, some of the stories as well, like it was all like the theme was cities, and the idea being kind of like after the Industrial Revolution, where people like left kind of like the more remote places and the fields, and they were starting to get, you know, come into cities more. There was this thing about almost like a loss of identity, right? You know, you can get lost in the crowd in a city. You know, you can blend in. You know, you can move around unnoticed because there's so many people. It's easier to just kind of keep your head down and kind of do what it is that you're doing. But the idea of kind of like, you know, crime kind of increased and things because, you know, when people were away from their families, like say for example, it was a man and he was from a small village, and you know everybody knew everybody, so it was almost like everybody was keeping each other in check in that environment. But when the man moves to a city for work, suddenly like he's away from home, you know, his mum doesn't know what he's doing, you know, he's not got his neighbors gossiping anymore, and all of a sudden he's got this anonymity that allows him to kind of like do what he wants to do, kind of thing, like without quite so many social repercussions. So it's making me think of that, the idea of kind of like this person who thinks that they're blending in with the crowd, they think that they're in a big city or a big bustling place, but it's like no, it's almost like the CCTV is on them, right? It's like this one has been is being tracked and followed, is the way it's coming through. So I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not saying if you've done nothing wrong, you haven't got anything to fear right now, right? I want to really emphasize that. It feels more like somebody who thinks they're getting away with something, right? Somebody who's done something wrong, and they think they're getting away with it, and they think they're not being noticed, but actually it's almost like the authorities are onto them, is the way it's coming through. I'm going to quickly mention some of the side cards that are around. So these cards, you've got peace and harmony. So again, I feel like you, the viewer, watching this, it's almost like you've not got anything to worry about. That's the main message that I want to say. It's like, if you think somebody's being doing something that they shouldn't be doing, especially if it's something really bad, and you know maybe this person has a lot of power and they think they're getting away with it, it's kind of like, don't worry, you know, the right people are taking care of this. You can just enjoy you know, the good fortune and the peace and harmony that are going to come to you, perhaps when this is resolved. So you have peace and harmony with the dog as well, protection from a powerful friend, right? It's like the dragon is the powerful friend. They're ensuring your peace and harmony. You've got owl, advice from a wise person. You've got period of prosperity and abundance with bread. You've got four-leaf clover, great good fortune, and you've got April. So any of that could mean something to you. April was also giving me it was giving me the Turtles song, you know, because in Turtles, the friend, the female reporter journalist, she's called April. So it was giving me that song, Turtle power, Turtle power. So if that means anything, take it, like the turtles. And again, the turtles live in a big city. I think they live in New York City. So again, that's another New York reference. On this side, you've got grasshopper, situation in the balance that requires careful handling. I feel like that is talking about whatever the situation is. That's come out with, I'm also noticing the pig card underneath that, which was I think in Gemini's reading, or it could have been Taurus's reading. I'm getting them all mixed up again. Quill, get back to the basics, and older woman, dealing or a relationship with an older woman. So make of that what you will. You've also got the boundaries card, the unexpected card, which I think I mentioned, and blossoming. So I do feel like you, the viewer, and sovereignty as well. It's like, if you feel like you need to get your power back, if you feel like you need your own sovereignty, and you've been in an unstable situation, I want to say it's almost like this idea of like breaking you out of a protective shell in order to help you reach your blossoming abundance and sovereignty. Because perhaps those boundaries went up to protect yourself if you were in a difficult situation. You've also got gravity and groundedness, regeneration and hydra, and grief banshee. This was making me think of like Demeter as well, again, because I was getting kind of like the Persephone reference, how she kind of like, you know, she was so grief stricken and wailing. It's like she couldn't do her job, right? She couldn't tend to the fields and the crops, and, you know, winter came basically. But it's almost like groundedness, gravity, regeneration, and grief. So it's almost like the ground is regenerating, right? The earth beneath your feet is regenerating in some sort of way. And then after a period of grief, perhaps. Yeah, like I say, it does feel a bit like getting your power back, like learning how to, like stepping back into your power, it's almost like leading the charge, feeling very fiery after a period of kind of, you know, shock, not knowing which direction to take, something like that. You've also got the Eight of Swords here, which can talk about imprisonment, or feeling trapped, feeling like your hands are tied, feeling like you don't have options. A lot of the time it's kind of like mental. It's like, I don't know which way to turn. I can't see the path because of all these worries that I have, you know. But it can also indicate like literal jail, with the Judgment and the Hangman as well, and the Death card. I almost feel like, it feels like quite like almost like a revolution, right? Like you know, like getting strung up by the mob kind of thing, you know, like when the public gets so angry, or when a crowd or a group gets so angry at somebody because they've done something so awful. It's almost like this mob mentality where it's like we just want to see them punished, right? We just want to see that person kind of like suffer for what they've done, which is not, it's almost like the fire ant card for me, which I don't like that energy, because I don't like mob mentality. I don't like the viciousness that can come with that. It's almost like two wrongs don't make a right. But like I say, it could also be like if there is some kind of trial going on, it's almost like the crowd outside, right? Kind of baying for blood is what I'm hearing. I literally heard baying for blood. So I don't know what this is for you, Leo, and it could be collective, right? Especially because, like I say, I feel like Julia Knows is picking up on it as well. So maybe this is something that we're going to see happen in New York. But I'm just going to keep going. So the Four of Pentacles, do check your passwords. If you need to have like two-step verification on, if you need to kind of put your firewall on, kind of do those necessary steps if you feel like you need to do that. Protect your devices, update them, you know, do your checks and things like that. The Knight of Coins, it might be slow, right? So it's kind of like it's got gears here, so it's like the gears could turn quite slowly with whatever this is, but it is worth doing. It's like, take the steps. So I know I've just updated, like installed an update on my phone, and it takes ages. It's like 5 minutes. It feels like forever when you want to use your phone, right? So it's kind of like, but do it, because it's a process, right? It takes time because it's doing the steps, it's doing the process. The Knight of Coins, which again, it feels like something on its way or something in process. So again, it could be some kind of court case or investigation that's in progress. But it's leading to this Ten of Pentacles. Now I'm going to show you these two cards together. It's got this feeling of like a house being investigated. So the Ten of Pentacles, it is supposed to be a very, very good card. It's supposed to be, you know, a home that's very warm. It's a nurturing environment. It's a place that, if it's a workplace, it's like a workplace that's shared with like shared resources. It's everybody working really, really well together to keep the home fires burning. So it's a very, very positive card, the Ten of Pentacles. But you can see how frosty it looks, right? You can see like the picture of what it should be. It's almost like the Instagram picture of what it should be. But in reality, that big house is actually very, very cold, and maybe secretive. And then then with the skeleton as well, it's almost like skeletons in the cupboard, right? Skeletons in the walls. So it's almost like things that are hidden inside this house, or this household has secrets. Something like that is the way it's coming, is the way it's coming through. So it's kind of like the perspective of this situation is going to change. Like, even though it may, people may have thought of it as being like a very, very like wealthy family, a very reputable family. It's like, actually people are going to see the coldness, like the filter's going to be taken off, something like that, I want to say. And like I say, the hangman, we keep seeing it because you've got it here, the justice card's leading into the hangman, and you've got the hangman there as well. So the hangman does talk about the need for a change of perspective, because the old perspective isn't working anymore. But I can't shake that feeling of like skeletons in the walls. Now, I had this literal experience where I grew up in a pub and it was haunted, and there were so many different stories about the hauntings of this pub, and I could feel it myself, right? And it was a scary presence to me, so I kind of closed off to it, being an intuitive, being an empath, I guess. I feel so strange describing myself in that way. I'm still getting used to it. But I did research. Like, again, it's kind of like I investigated this. I looked into it. I wanted more information. So I went to the library and went through their newspaper reports. You can go through the databases and the newspaper reports. So maybe this is something that you're doing. Maybe you're looking deeply into something, and you're even looking at like historical reports, or like historical police files, police reports about a certain family. It could be something like that. It doesn't feel like necessarily you, the individual, is doing this. It feels more like, it feels to me like there's something going on energetically. And Leo, if this turns out to be something that's like in the news, if this is like some kind of breaking story, just like that court case was about the nurse in the last set of readings, I will do my best to get you a second Leo reading out that is more of a personal reading, because this might be a collective message. But like I say, I did my research at the library, and I was looking through the slides, just like in like old movies, like in Nancy Drew or something. And I found this police report, and not police report, sorry, this newspaper article, and it was about the pub that I lived in, and a historical article where they'd been doing renovation work, and they knocked through a wall, and I think they did find some sort of skeleton in it, and it was kind of like an altar in this. I mean, it was like before I was born, right? It was like years before I lived there. But it's like it's that kind of thing. It's like, oh, it's like knocking down a wall and finding a skeleton. Now, it may not be that exactly. It's making me think of a story a friend in work told me as well, about a pigeon got in their chimney breast. So the granddad had to kind of like clear out the chimney, and in doing so, not only did they find the live bird. Hold on, my son's shouting. So yeah, so not only did they find a live bird in the walls that was kind of like fluttering around and trying to escape and making a lot of noise, and they pulled that out, but they also pulled out a skeleton of a pigeon that had got in the fireplace as well. From however long before. So it's making me think of that story. It could definitely be hypothetical, right? Like hypothetical skeletons in the closet, like this family's secrets, maybe even like historical secrets. This could be something that an ancestor did, but it's like, it almost feels like it's been uncovered, it's been revealed. Now, this temperance card, to me, it always looks to me like she's trying to get her to talk. So you can see how she's filling up her glass, and she's got her fist clenched, right? So it's almost like this one is getting this one to kind of like loosen up, so that she will talk more freely, right? She'll spill the secrets, so it looks like that to me. It looks almost like it's making me think of a book I read about a police officer who was investigating criminal gangs, and he had to go undercover, and so it's making me think of that a little bit. It's almost like somebody who's or a reporter as well. It's like this reporter's job to get close to a member of this family and get them to speak. It always, well, as well, just incidentally, it looks to me like Nina Caliente and Bella Goth from The Sims. It always reminds me of them, so I'm just going to say it just in case that's relevant. But yeah, it looks to me like this person's trying to get this person to talk, and this is the Temperance card. So it could be saying, if you have secrets, right? If you know something, there might be, if you're connected in some way to this, so it could be that you work at this, like, I'm saying institution, right? Maybe this is like an old person's home, or maybe this is kind of like a nursing hospital, or, you know, it doesn't have to be a house. Maybe this, you know, this is like the cleaner of the house, and it's kind of like, but someone's here trying to get them to talk about this place, right? It's like spill the secrets on this place. So for example, if something, say you worked at an old person's home and there was some kind of scandal, right? You would get like reporters, perhaps undercover, you know, trying to talk to anyone who worked there, trying to get more stories. So it has that feeling to it. It's kind of like, but this person's trying to get you to talk about that place. Now, again, it kind of has this feeling of like this being a trick or this being a trap, because the Ten of Cups and the Ace of Cups, it's almost like one drink too many, right? So and they're kind of like happy and they're having fun, but they're walking towards this kind of this puddle. It's almost like they've got their eyes closed, they're busy laughing, they're not really watching where they're walking, and they're about to walk into that. It's almost like walking into that trap is the way it's coming through, especially because it's followed by the Fool card. Now, this card was out yesterday, and I want to say Taurus's reading, no, Gemini's reading, Cancer's reading. How many readings have I done? It came out in like 2 of the readings, I think. But I'm saying I'm getting a very, very different message from it. It's like it looks really good. It looks like the ten of Cups, right? Just like this looked like the Ten of Pentacles, but it's not really. This also is feeling like it's not really the Ten of Cups. So I'm saying that it's the same card from those other readings, but I'm reading it in a very different way. So again, I'm not saying, I mean, maybe this is shedding some light on the previous readings for you, but to me, this is saying this is a different situation altogether. It's not the same situation that we're talking about here, but I don't know, right? I don't really know. It feels energetically different. So anyway, it's like, you know, having a good time. It's all fun and games, right? But there's a trap set. So it's almost like the Fool isn't watching where he's going. He's about to step on the cat, right? It's like, do you know when people say step on a crack, break your back? It's kind of like he's not paying attention. He's having too much fun. He's too caught up in the moment, and he's about to run into a problem. It could be that they're running into this person, right? This Knight of Swords character, because the Knight of Swords is carrying the Ace of Swords. And over here on this Ace of Swords, it's almost this feeling of like somebody who feels like, you know, they're just out enjoying themselves. Like they think they've not got a care in the world. They think everything is fine. You know, they've distanced themselves from some kind of situation or something like that, but then it's like the truth comes in, right? The truth hits, the Ace of Swords, or this person's confronted with the truth, right? It's like they're out having fun, minding their own business, but then they're hit by this truth. And then this, underneath this, crazily enough, like, look, it's just like the same thing. It's like he's about to put his foot down into this puddle, or like he's about to take a step forward and fall into this water. So it's almost like he's going to be confronted, he, she, they, whoever this is, you perhaps, they're going to be confronted with this truth or this confrontation perhaps, like these people who are maybe angry or upset, and step in that, and then it's almost like fall into this black hole, right? But with it being the Seven of Swords, it's the Seven of Swords is deception, right? It's like a trap, it's a trick. So it just looks to me like stepping into, you know, stepping somewhere, and it, do you know, like those old traps that you see in like cartoons and things where, you know, people are walking through the forest and then like they walk and it's actually, you know, a net covered with leaves covering a hole, and it's like they step forward and then they fall into the hole and the net closes around them. It has that kind of feeling to it, especially like the net could be like the internet, right? It's like, and then there they are kind of like stuck in the hole kind of thing. So yeah, it feels like falling through into a trap, or like because there's this confrontation. So I want to say that whoever this is, I have the feeling of someone thinking they've got away with it, right? Someone who thinks, you know, that it's almost like they put that skeleton in the wall and then they went about the business and they thought nobody would ever find it. Like it has the feeling of like someone thought they were getting away with something, right? They're like out in the city, blending in, thinking that nobody's noticed, but they have been noticed. So then this almost feels like, because like I say, it's almost like they're out snowboarding, they're out having fun, they're having some drinks, and then it's kind of like, here's the confrontation, like here's the police officer confronting them with the evidence, perhaps. So then you go into the justice card, right? So this is really emphasizing this idea of kind of like truth and justice, right? Confronted with the truth, and then it's like time for justice to be done. I also feel like it's got this feeling of like this idea of like the mob, right? Because the story that this card tells me is like, because this is the hangman, right? This is the hangman who's about to be like hung up like by the angry mob, right? They want to punish him. It's like they're taking someone to put him in the stocks almost. It's like maybe like civic justice or something like that, like what do they call that, like a citizen's arrest, just because this is kind of like somebody who's, it's like she's getting everybody fired up to go and get this person. But then here comes the police officer, right? Here comes the law, you know, the true authority to say no, um, not without fair trial, not without fair trial, not without due justice, right? It's like we have to do this. We have to do this the correct way. We have to oversee this. Like, so it's this confrontation energy of like the people who are getting carried away almost. So it feels like these energies are protecting someone from like this as well, right? It's like, so it's like the death card follows. It's almost like they're protecting someone from the mob. Maybe it's literally the mob, right? Maybe it's like literally the, because I was talking about like crime rings, like, you know, that like the justice of the land versus the justice of the group, you know. So it's like the authority steps in here. But then the strange thing is, after justice, and I want to say justice is here to say, if you're doing this, it has to be done the right way, right? We have to take this to court. We have to prosecute. We have to have a jury. We have to have a trial. But then we have the Magician followed by the Ten of Swords. So I don't know if there's, because the Ten of Swords feels like a betrayal, right? This is the meaning of this. It's like itu brute, like stabbed in the back by your best friend kind of thing. Like it's like a painful ending. It's like, ah, oh, that hurt, you know? That I really feel like I was betrayed in that moment. And in between justice and that painful ending, which is always a new beginning, right? There's this Magician. Excuse me. It could be that somebody has like a false leg, but it's looking to me like the final nail in the coffin. And also something about him doing it right, because there's all this stuff about the hammers that have been coming through from this deck, about people who haven't been paying attention or haven't been doing the job properly with the hammer, or injuring themselves with the hammer, right? So it could be, one reading had something about like you know, compensation claims, like look here, they're all like using hammers. So like compensation claims because the tools weren't fit for the job, or like they didn't know how to use the tools, something like that. But this is looking to me like, but he knows how to use the tool because he's the magician, right? He knows, he's got everything at his disposal to make something happen. So yeah, he's kind of like putting the final, it's like the final nail in the coffin. It could be like the final piece of evidence that's really gonna like solidify the case, you know, something like that, because it's kind of like the final, do you see what I mean, the final nail in the coffin, the final sword to really make sure that this is ended, whatever this is. So it's a strange reading. I do not have context, right? I don't want to anger anyone. I don't know what I'm talking about. I trust my guides that anything that comes through is for the highest good of everybody. So again, I couldn't point a finger and say, oh, this is talking about that person, or this is talking about that person. I know I did mention Russell Brand at the beginning, but I don't think it's about Russell Brand at all. I think that my guides were just using that as an example of like something that's similar to whatever it is I'm picking up on. But I feel so strongly that this is something, right? This is something. And it might be something that we see in the news. It might be something that is happening now, but we don't hear about it until later. But I really feel like it is, just like how I was picking up on that court case about the nurse. In the last set of readings, there was about 10 readings, or 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that, where I kept on saying, I was going, it's this massive court case, and it's almost like, you know, the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, where everybody's like glued to the screen, everybody's talking about it, it's like everybody knows about it. And I was like, it's this massive trial, but I feel like, and I was like talking about witness protection and kind of like, you know, when the jury is like not allowed to speak about something, and then the news broke about this trial as the sentence was being passed. It's like finally they had like a blanket ban on reporting it. And then I saw it, I saw the breaking news, and I was like, oh my God, that's the trial. Because it had been going on and it had been talking about all the things that I'd mentioned, you know, like, protecting witnesses' identities and things like this. And it was exactly what I've been channeling, and yet I knew nothing about it, right? I didn't know that that was happening until the breaking news happened. And then I was like, that's what I've been channeling. And I feel like it's something similar, especially because, as I say, Julia knows, like her Virgo reading is also talking about New York, and this thing about like the girl coming out of the woods, right? So I just feel like it's something we're gonna find out about what this is, I think. And like I say, if it does turn out to be a big collective thing, I will do a separate they're never personal, right? They're not like a one-on-one reading, but like a more kind of, I'm just moving things as I'm trying to find a deck, but a more Leo focused reading, because I don't know what this is. Let's go for the dragon. So I want to know, let's close out the reading with a dragon card, because I just feel like it's too intense to just leave it there. So Luna, open it almost on it. Embrace and accept what you really feel. As her name suggests, Luna is connected to our moon and her phases. You do have the moon here. She is a mother figure, and due to her watery nature, she connects to emotions, creativity, and of course water. A mother figure, right? And you've got like grief, and that's an emotion. I don't know, I'm getting that Demeter energy. Her arrival is a prompt to feel fully your emotions, particularly if you've been avoiding their messages. She urges you to examine them, own them, and release what you no longer need. She says, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, it's fine to ask for help. This is not a weakness, but an acknowledgement that you have been strong for far too long on your own. A little self-care wouldn't go amiss either. You can only be fully who you want to be once you embrace and accept what you really feel. Only then can you truly transform. She urges us to follow our creativity and to revisit latent talents, whether they're musical, written, in the field of performing, and so on. She tells me these activities are good for the soul. You can lose yourself in the moment. You can lose yourself in the moment. You want it, better never let it go. It's funny because I was talking about that in one of the other readings, Lose Yourself, and Shakespeare, and teaching children literary techniques through rap music versus Shakespeare. You become engrossed in a piece of work and embrace the bliss that accompanies such activities. Okay. I'm going to get you a song to close out the reading. If I get an advert, I'm just going to kind of like close and open it again. So yeah, just to kind of like show you as well, like Jhene knows, this is the channel and this is the reading, Virgo 1:17 p.m. and you can see I'm only 1 minute 19 in, but she mentions New York, and when I saw it, it was only 13 minutes. Like that's how, so yeah, just kind of to give you the time frame to show that I'm not making anything up here. I didn't watch Julia Knows' reading. It said 13 minutes ago when I clicked on the video. Obviously that was like, this has been 30 minutes, so 43 minutes ago. So I really like Julia. She's an intuitive reader. She goes through intuitive messages at the start of her videos, and they don't always resonate with me. But if it's my reading, it's like, you know, she can be pulling names out of the people that I'm going to the shop with, and like, do you know, she's like so precise when it is my reading. Okay. With or Without You by U2. I love this song so much. See the stone set in your eyes, see the thorn twist in your side, I'll wait for you. Sleight of hand and twist of fate. On a bed of nails, she makes me wait. That feels like that, right? Sleight of hand is very magician. On a bed of nails, she makes me wait, and I'll wait without you, with or without you. Through the storm we reach the shore. You give it all, but I want more, and I'm waiting for you. I can't live with or without you, and you give yourself away. My hands are tied, my body bruised. She got me with nothing to win and nothing left to lose. Okay, and then it repeats. This, I'm going to show you this as well. This is like the artwork. So he's got all these like scribbles around it as well. I was just kind of trying to read some of them. Like, best to arrive at her moat, fort, defenseless, and have half a chance at challenging her, own almost unbreachable defense system is the only way. The only way are that drawbridge. I don't know. It must be the notes of, I don't know, it must be the artwork from it or something. I don't know what that is, but it's you know, whatever's on the song there. I hope this is helpful to you. I hope there's something interesting here for you. I hope it's relevant or helpful in some sort of way. I'm not intending to distress anyone. I'm not intending to scare anyone. What I want to say is if you've been through something particularly difficult, especially if it's like particularly difficult to talk about and you feel like justice was not done, I want to say that if someone thinks they're getting away with something, they are under investigation, they are being watched, they will face justice. But sometimes it can be that, I know sometimes legal cases can take a really long time to kind of build properly, and a lot of the time, you know, they want to make sure the case is really, really watertight before they launch the prosecution, because they don't want people to kind of like worm their way out. So sometimes they build up that much evidence that it's like, you know, non-contestable. And maybe that's what's been happening. And maybe that's what, if you feel like there's been delays or nothing's been done, it could be that this is a very, very involved situation. I'm not sure, but like I say, you've got cards like boundaries and this Four of Pentacles, and this idea of like her castle. So I do feel like somebody has really built their castle walls up high, right? They've built their defensive system up high, and a lot of the time if something awful does happen to us and we need to be defensive, then we do build those walls thick, and we do build those you know, the moats and the defense systems to really protect ourselves. And that could be the case. Maybe this is like an older woman around you, I don't know. But I hope it's helpful, and please keep yourself safe, and again, not trying to scare anyone. I feel like this could be something that we see in the news in October. But I'm gonna go, friends, and yeah, I hope you have a wonderful October. And I do think that, you know, with the cards that are here, I do think that, you know, there is a good cycle coming in for you. So just hold on, right? There's another, isn't that another U2 song? Like, what is it? Hold on. What is it? Oh, what is it? I can't get the tune right. Hold on, hold on. You know it. It's a famous song. You know it. Okay, I'm going. Take care. Take care of your faces. Bye, Leos.